The game starts with our protagonists, Kratos and Atreus and Mimir, hanging out in Midgard and doing fun father and son activities like killing terrible monsters and trying to survive terrible winter. Atreus is a little worried that there is Ragnarok that's about to happen, and he's also eager to find out what this whole Loki business is that he found out about in Jotunheim 3 years ago, and is scared that maybe there's gonna be war, but Kratos is like, I know I'm the god of war, but I did so much war. I destroyed an entire pantheon. You might as well call me god of peace at this point. That's how much I don't want war. I'm not doing any more war. Thank you. No war for me. Thanks. And they just kind of hang out for a while and then knock knock. Oh, who's there? Oh, it's Thor. Are you a calm and reasonable person? Yes. Well, I sure ain't. And then they're like, and there's like this big battle. It's like the Baldur battle, but even bigger. And they fly all the way to the Lake of Nine, and they fall on the ice, and they keep fighting.
Meanwhile,
Atreus and Mimir are still in the hut, and also I don't know how exactly that would work with the one-shot camera. It's probably gonna like fly through the forest very fast. Anyway, knock knock. Who's there? Oh, it's Odin, Loki, son of Kratos.
I was expecting someone with your reputation to be a little older.
Odin Allfather.
You're shorter than I expected.
Also, how do you know I'm Loki? And Odin's like, oh, I know many things. I know all about everything because I'm all-knowing and the Allfather, whatever. Anyway, listen, I know you're an eager boy and you want to stop Ragnarok and whatever. I am kindly asking you to not do that. I sent Thor to distract your dad for a while because I want to talk to you specifically. I want to let you know that you must let Ragnarok happen because, I mean, I got this. I control the wolves. I send the realms in disarray so everyone is distracted by Fimbulwinter or war or whatever, and when Ragnarok does happen, I'm just gonna win and everyone's gonna be fine and there's not gonna be any destruction. So if you please could not interfere with this, that'd be great. And also, I saw the future, and if you try to stop us, your dad is gonna die, so live with that, I guess. And obviously you can't tell him, that's our little secret, but keep that in the back of your mind, all right? And I mean, you're a god. You have to make your own decisions. You can't live in the shadow of your father all the time, right? Hey, is that Mimir? Yeah. I guess you can keep him. Oh, and f*** you, Mimir. And Odin leaves.
meanwhile,
You killed my brother and my sons. Well, you killed all the giants. Well, you killed an entire pantheon. Touche. But, you know, I've really moved on from that and learned from that mistake. And don't you want to go through similar character development throughout this game? Maybe. But then, and the Jormungandr comes in and they will fight. And Thor's like, oh shit, this is too much for me to handle. I can't do that right now. I'm gonna have to leave. Bye. And he leaves. And Kratos goes back home and he's like, oh, well, that was a lot. And Atreus, the smart boy that he is like, well, now Odin told me that I shouldn't let Ragnarok happen, so now I definitely need to do something about it. And his internal logic is, Odin just told him that he controls everything about Ragnarok, and if they change that, maybe the scales will tip and they will be able to win and not the Aesir. But he can't tell his dad because his life is at stake. And he tells Kratos that they have to go do this thing, and that's his Loki calling, whatever, because he asked him, what would Loki do, whatever, and he's like, yeah, let's do this. And Kratos is obviously very reluctant. He wants to keep his son safe, and he doesn't want to deal with all that crap that is happening with Ragnarok, whatever. But Atreus is very persistent, so Kratos puts on his very fancy cape, and he takes the blades and off they go with the wolves and the sled and whatever, and they go do stuff in Midgard. Specifically, Atreus has this ball with Hati on it, so he thinks that somehow that can influence the Skull and Hati situation and them swallowing the moon and the sun and starting Ragnarok, so he wants to find the other ball. And another thing, they found a picture of Tyr with Skull and Hati, so there is a little clue there about how potentially Tyr may be alive and somehow he can help to deal with this Colin Hati situation. So they go do that for a while, and then Freya attacks, and surprise, she has her warrior spirit back and whatever, she can use her sword now, and she captures Atreus and Kratos, and she finds out that Atreus hung the mistletoe arrow tip as a trophy, and she's a little upset about that. And they manage to escape because Brock and or Sindri show up all of a sudden and grab them and show them this new device that they've been working on, harnessing the dwarven power to move in between realms. And that's how we're gonna get introduced to this new device, because Tyr's temple is useless now and Odin blocked all the realm entries. So now they have this device that can bypass that and use the realm between realms like a dwarf. But the thing is, they have to do it through the hub, which is the Brock and Sindri house that we see on the map, and that's in Svartalfheim. Anyway, Brock and Sindri save Kratos and Atreus, and they bring them home to Svartalfheim. And guess what? They have a little tip where Tyr is. He's literally here in Svartalfheim, and they know a guy called Durlin who may know where he is. So they go talk to Durlin, and he probably asked them about some sort of errand they have to run, and they go do that, and then, oh no, the Aesir attack, because the dwarves promised that they're gonna collaborate with the Aesir, but now they're helping Kratos and Atreus, and that's a big no. So they fight a bunch of frogs for a bit, and they fight the Einherjar, and they protect the dwarves, and they're more trusting of Kratos and Atreus now. And they go through the caverns, and they find Tyr. And Tyr's like, oh shit, are you Kratos from the hit video game series God of War 1 and 2 and 3 and the other ones who kills all the gods? I don't want to be killed like all those other gods you killed. And Kratos is like, no, I'm actually Kratos from the hit, soon-to-be hit video game God of War Ragnarok, a sequel to the hit video game God of War 2018, where I have gone significant character development and I don't kill gods anymore unless I really have to, so don't worry about it, okay? And Tyr's like, alright, so what did I miss? Well, in short, oh, the giants are dead and Ragnarok's about to happen. And Tyr's like, cool, that's great. So he's obviously in a great mood after that. But he has a lead about how to perhaps change the course of Ragnarok. He knows where the last remaining giants are. Actually, correction, he doesn't know, but he knows someone who knows, and that's the Jotun Aegir, the god of the sea. And he's in Alfheim, so they should go check him out there. And so they go to Alfheim, and there's a lot of bad stuff going on. There's the ongoing war that the Light Elves are currently winning at, and Tyr is obviously upset at all this war because he doesn't like war, he wants peace. And also, Fimbulwinter dried up the Lake of Nine, and that's a big problem because that's where all the souls are supposed to go, and if the lake is dry and the lindworm isn't there, it can't dispose the souls, and the dying process is disturbed, which is pretty terrible news considering all the Hellwalkers and everything. This is putting the Nine Realms in even more chaos, which is what Odin wants. So they have to deal with that, so they fight the Dark Elves for a bit, and then they realize that the Light Elves were evil all along. Surprise. So now they're on the side of the Dark Elves. Tyr suggests that they should probably find Freyr, the Lord of the Elves in Vanaheim, who will definitely help end this war for good. At a certain point, they're gonna end up at the light again, and Kratos will naturally be very enticed to step back into it, A, because he wants to hear and see Faye, and 2, because the light is related to death, and Kratos is like, maybe it's just easier to take that easy way out and just stay in the light and wait through all of this so I don't have to deal with it. But this time he is obviously stopped by Atreus, who knows what happens when Kratos steps into the light, and they don't need to go there this time. It's not their goal. So they have a little bit of an argument where Kratos shows a little weakness and Atreus has to stand his ground and really force Kratos to not step into the light. They hang out at the bottom of the lake for a bit, and they run into Ran, pun not intended, who's like, hi guys, that's cool that you came, but Aegir's dead because Thor killed him, and I don't like the Aesir, so I'm gonna help you, but I need your help with the lake and the Lindworm. So they help out, however, with that, and they free the Lindworm. I think that the big jellyfish is the Lindworm, and in return, Ran tells them about Angerboda, and at this point, the gang is gonna split up. Tyr and Mimir are gonna go find Angerboda. Mimir's going with Tyr because he needs to catch up on everything that he missed. And Kratos and Atreus are gonna go to Vanaheim to find Freyr, who will help with both the war and with Freya and her ongoing vengeance thing that's a bit of a problem. And they take some dark elves with them to help. At which point Odin shows up again. And this time he talks to Kratos and he tries to tick him off a little bit about how he's the ghost of Sparta and he always only killed for his own gain and the stuff we heard in the trailer, and also that maybe Faye was using him the whole time just to avenge her kind and not necessarily because she loved him, and that really ticks Kratos off. And so he goes to Vanaheim and not in the greatest of moods. Anyway, they hang around Vanaheim for a bit and they find Freyr, and then Freya attacks. She is in Vanaheim now somehow, and she's trying to actively kill both Kratos and Freyr because vengeance, and she is mad now, and they run away, and then there is a Freya boss battle in which Kratos almost kills her, and then he realizes what he's doing because Odin really ticked him off, and he stops, and Freya's barely alive at this point. And Atreus is looking at all this, and he's like, oh, this is not good. Maybe Odin is right, and my dad is a little bit crazy and a monster. Anyway, they return to Svartalfheim with Freyr, who then goes to Alfheim to try and stop the war, and that's when they meet Angerboda, who tells them about a secret passage to where the remaining giants live. And that secret passage goes through Niflheim, and they go through Niflheim, and there's a giant cow for some reason, and this weird whatever that is, and they go through this gate, and they end up at the center of all the 9 realms and the origin of the 9 realms, the Gunninga Gap. There they encounter 2 Valkyries, because that's cool, and they obviously defeat them, and they travel into this pocket in time. And now I think is a good time to explain what I think the time travel will be like in this game. Because God of War 2 created so many problems and logic bubbles, I think instead of utilizing the Back to the Future method or even the Avengers Endgame method, this game is going to utilize the Prisoner of Azkaban method, where everything that Kratos and Atreus do in the past already affected the present. For example, we see 2 troll statues in God of War 2018 and then they disappear. So that change already happened during God of War 2018, even though we're gonna see that change in Ragnarok. I hope that makes sense. So that way, there can't be any terrible plot holes, or they can't really grab Faye from the past, for example, and bring her to their present, because she's gonna disappear from the past and that's gonna mess with the whole timeline. I hope that makes sense anyway. So they go through this pocket in time and they go to Jotunheim, and Angerboda's like, you're gonna find all the answers, whatever. And they see this more blossoming Jotunheim that we've seen in the promotional material, and they're gonna meet those remaining Jotnar. And there's going to be a little, obviously, moment of levity of Loki meeting his kind and them greeting Loki as the guardian they've been expecting. They're gonna find out that the argument that Faye was having with the giant on the mural is actually regarding Loki, and hoping that the new guardian is gonna come soon enough. And those giants who Faye was arguing with said that they're gonna stay in Jotunheim, and those are obviously the giants that died. And this small group of giants that survived are the ones who believed Faye and believed in the future and in Loki. They followed her into this pocket realm place, and they are still alive. And Angerboda is one of them, naturally. At which point they realize that they don't necessarily need to affect things in the present to change the outcome of Ragnarok, but they can do it in the past. Tyr, as a man who is related to Skoll and Hati, will guide them in the past, and they have the 2 balls, the Skoll and Hati balls, Chekhov's balls, that allegedly control Skoll and Hati. So if they return to the past and trick Odin into thinking that he cast the wolves, but actually they did, they're gonna have the control over the wolves in the present, so they will start Ragnarok on their own schedule, if at all, instead of Odin, and that would be a giant disadvantage to Odin. So they're gonna go to the past, and they're gonna go to Vanaheim, and they're gonna do the thing, and I know that it's probably in the past because Mimir says this.
But when the sun and moon grew mutinous and stood still, Odin put Skoll and Hati to use.
And we can see that the sun and moon are standing still, and Atreus is gonna create a bond with Skoll and Hati there and then. Obviously, as Loki, he will be able to communicate with the wolves. So he will launch them into the sky and then will technically have control over them. And also Skoll and Hati will tell them about the wolf Hrothvitnir, who's Fenrir, and they're gonna tell him that he is being held up in Helheim. The wolves also tell them they need to go to the point where the realms will be most out of balance to talk to Jormungandr about something, so they're gonna travel back to when Atreus was sick and the skies were red and everything, and they blow the horn and they do the thing, and they talk to Jormungandr, who reveals to them that there is a special ritual Atreus needs to perform with another special giant that is crucial to Jormungandr's involvement in Ragnarok, and they probably need to grab some sort of thing that they will use to perform this ritual that somehow is only available during this specific point in time when Atreus is sick. And they're like, okay, we'll do that, and then they go kill the trolls because that's the thing that's supposed to happen. Anyway, they go back to the future, pun not intended again, believe it or not, and they go to Helheim, and Tyr is getting a little fed up because, and Kratos also, because they're like, why are we doing all of this? Why are we not trying to stop Ragnarok, but we're just trying to influence the outcome? And Atreus is like, secrets, everyone has secrets, I can't tell you or anyone because, ooh. And they go to Helheim and they meet Fenrir, who's bound by the Aesir, and he seems a little upset because he's been hanging out there and it's pretty cold for a while. And they try to unbind him and they free him, but then he starts fighting them anyway because everyone wants to fight a big wolf, and he chops off Tyr's hand and eats it because that's also in the mythology and that has to happen. Anyway, at some point Atreus is gonna be able to communicate with Fenrir and he's gonna tell them about his sister. And they're like, oh, interesting, more wolves? And they're gonna go to the city of Helheim, where they're gonna go to Hel's Hall and meet Hel herself. And she will be like, well, isn't this Loki, my father? And he's like, oh, what? What happened? Who? Huh? How is this possible? And she's gonna tell him that Loki is destined to have 3 kids, Jormungandr, Fenrir, and herself. And he's like, how does that work? And while they're there, they're like, can you fix this Hellwalker situation? There's a lot of them and we are tired of fighting them all the time. Can you please just do something about that? And she's like, yep, definitely. You get the Hell army and you also get the ship Naglfar, which is pretty neat, and it's very big and can handle a lot of armies, which is very useful. Odin cast me out here and I'm a little upset about that. I'm gonna help you. Also, you're my dad. And Atreus is like, I still can't wrap my head around that. That's very weird. Oh, hey, look, it's Balder. What's up, Balder? F you. And so they return, at which point Kratos is really fed up with everything and they have a big argument where Kratos is asking Atreus about why he's keeping secrets, and Atreus is angry at his father because he's not letting Loki be who he wants to be and do what he feels he is destined to do. So they have a big falling out, and Kratos tells Atreus that he saw a part on the mural in Jotunheim when they visited it, and that he doesn't know who the person is, but he thinks that he might die in Loki's hands. Atreus admits that Odin came to see him and that if they try to stop him, Kratos will die. That's his fate. And Kratos is like,
shit,
Boy,
that's all you had to say.
changing fate is like half of my job description. You don't worry about that at all. Okay, Mimir, you got the Sisters of Fate here in this pantheon, right? And Mimir's like, yeah, the Norns. He's like, where are we gonna find them? And Mimir's like, they're at the very root of the world tree. You know how we jumped this very dangerous jump we did to find the Tower of Jotunheim in the last game? We have to do that much more, and maybe there is no way back. But of course they go there and they travel through the roots for a bit and they find the Norns. And the Norns are like, ooh, you can't, the fate is ever changing and nothing is set in stone. Everything is in flux all the time. And then Thor shows up and he's like, oh, I'm gonna revenge. And they're fighting again and they kill the Norns accidentally. And so now they don't know if they changed their fate. Kratos is not sure whether he's gonna die or not, because there isn't a giant system to pull your thread. It's a little different in this game and in this mythology, so it's much less concrete. And Kratos and Thor have a little conversation where Kratos is like, don't you want to stop having to do everything your father says? And don't you have regrets or whatever in character development? And Thor's like, yeah, I'm a drunk and my family doesn't like me, and I am a little tired of being a pet of Odin. I just want to do my own thing. But they still fight because it's not the end of the game, and you need to fight Thor again. And anyway, they escape. Kratos is a little scared and defeated, and so is Atreus. Kratos knows that they have to fight. They have to be involved in the war now, but he is too afraid to do it again. He has been involved in an apocalyptic war before, and he doesn't want to be involved in that again, naturally. But Atreus is more certain than ever that his purpose as Loki is to lead the Jotnar and all the armies of the Nine Realms to fight the Aesir at Ragnarok. And even though maybe they're destined to die, or maybe Odin has more control over the events, they at least have to try. And at this point, Tyr is also like, no, I can't do war. I'm too tired. I've been hanging out with you guys trying to do nonsense this whole game, and my arm is bit off, so I am leaving. I am not gonna get involved with this. Bye. And Kratos agrees to do one last thing with Loki, and that's to go to Muspelheim and to recruit Surtur. And they do a bunch of these weird challenges, and they're like, Surtur, are you gonna go do the Ragnarok? And Surtur's like, bro, that's literally my purpose, and I've been training you, and I've been training myself my whole life for that. What kind of question even is that? And so they grab Surtur and the fire giants, and they all gather at Naglfar in Helheim, and everyone is there. Freyr brought all the Vanir and Njord and whatever, and all the elves, and Angerboda is there with the Jotnar, and Surtur is there with the fire giants, and Brock and Sindri and Durlin is there with the dwarves, and Hel brings all the Hellwalkers there as well, so there is a huge army that's ready to fight. And also Mimir gets a robot body, obviously, because that has to happen, and if you don't like that, I don't care. And the last thing that's left to do is to perform the ritual that Jormungandr said they need to do. And so Atreus and Angerboda go to the old dying Jormungandr, who has suffered a lot of damage from the fight with Thor and also the fight with Baldur 3 years ago. And through some magical means, as the old Jormungandr was dying, it's obviously a very sad moment, a new Jormungandr is reborn, and he is a much smaller serpent who fits much better on a boat next to his brother Fenrir and his sister Hel. Everything is ready. Atreus is ready to command the wolves to swallow the sun and moon, and they're all good to go. And Kratos is like, no, we're not going, Atreus. You're my son, you have to listen to me, and I'm saying that we're not gonna get involved in any war. And at this point, the tensions between the son and the father are so high that there is a little scuffle. Atreus fights Kratos for a bit and gets angry at him, and Kratos reluctantly sends Atreus on his way. And so Kratos alone returns to Midgard, and he goes home. It's a moment similar to the boat moment from the last game, and he sees the sun and moon be devoured by the wolves as Ragnarok starts to happen. And he goes inside his home, and he starts a fire, sitting all by himself, contemplating. Knock, knock. Who's there? Oh, it's Freya! She's got the full Valkyrie armor on, she is wounded, but she's still ready to fight. She recovered from that last battle, and she's angrier than ever, and she is about to fight Kratos, but all of a sudden, she notices that Atreus is gone. And her mother instincts immediately turn on, and she's like, where's the boy? And Kratos is like, I let him go to do Ragnarok, whatever. And she is instantly like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You're leaving your son alone to do this thing without you? And Kratos is like, well, I don't want to do any more war. I'm tired of doing war. Dude, did you see what happened between me and Baldur? I tried to protect Baldur too hard, and then he started hating me, and it's gotten to the point where we couldn't reconcile, and he just wanted to kill me. Do you really want that with your son? And this is the big climactic moment for Kratos. He was born for war, and he lived for war, and he caused so much pain and destruction that he would not conceivably want to get involved in another conflict. But he realizes that he can use his skills as a general and as the god of war for good finally. He can be more like Tyr and protect people instead of harming them. He can use his curse for good for once. And in return, Freya forgives Kratos for what he did, even though she can't entirely forgive him for killing her son, but she understands as well. And she doesn't want Kratos and Atreus to have what she and Baldur had. And also she hates Odin a lot. So she decides to join Kratos and the armies to help fight in Ragnarok. Besides, she knows a weakness to the Asgard's walls, which would be very useful because if they don't exploit it, they're gonna be noticed by Heimdall immediately and it's gonna alert everyone. But with the weakness, they have an element of surprise. Kratos and Freya walk out and they see all the Draugr and the ogres and the trolls all walk in one direction, ignoring Kratos and Freya, and they realize that they're all going towards Tyr's temple because Odin has called upon them to fight at Ragnarok, and he commanded them to go through Tyr's temple into Asgard to fight. They go to Tyr, and Kratos motivates Tyr to be involved in this conflict and share his new understanding that sometimes when they don't want war or they don't want to fight, they have to fight for the greater good, not just for themselves. And Tyr also reluctantly agrees, and the three of them make way to Naglfar, at which point Kratos and Loki reconcile, and Kratos now treats Loki as an equal, and as kind of a symbol of that, he gifts Loki the Leviathan axe, the weapon his mother used to protect the Jotnar, and now her son will do the same with her weapon. And at this point, I think we will stop using the square button for Atreus, because we are not commanding Atreus anymore. He is his own self, and he is a god of his own. Maybe we'll be able to control him equally, which would be cool, or maybe there will be sections where we play as Atreus, but it will be thematically appropriate if we don't quote-unquote command him what to do anymore. And this is when Atreus learns how to shapeshift, fully becoming Loki. And so everyone goes off flying on Naglfar, and Freya tells them about the structural weakness in the walls of Asgard. And they arrive to Asgard and they exploit this weakness, and they burst through and they land on the Rainbow Bridge. And at that point, they're in the middle of the bridge. On one side, towards the halls of Valhalla, all the Aesir come out. Thor and Odin on his horse Sleipnir, and Heimdall and all the other surviving Aesir that we haven't killed yet, because we'll be fighting a lot of Aesir in this game, throughout the game, I'm sure. And on the other side, it's gonna be all the Draugr and all the monsters that have been called in by Odin to fight. And there's this moment of silence where everyone stands, and then Heimdall blows his horn, and Ragnarok begins. There's a big battle, and we fight 1,000 enemies, and we fight some boss fights, and there's a little sub-task we have to do, and that is to free the Valkyries. The Valkyries that we saved in the last game have been held captive in Valhalla, and we have to fight through the armies of the Aesir and the Einherjar to reach them and get them out so they can help us fight, because that would be a great help, the 9 Valkyries. And so we kind of go through and do that, and we rescue Sigrun and all the other Valkyries, and now it's time to fight Thor again. And we're gonna fight Thor for a while, and the young Jormungandr is gonna clash with him, at which point they're gonna splinter the Yggdrasil, and Jormungandr flies to the past. And then Atreus attacks with the Leviathan axe, and Jormungandr's poison from the axe weakens Thor, and he falls down. At which point, Kratos is obviously gonna take Mjolnir, at least for a little bit, because we have to have that. Maybe he'll keep it, probably. And then he's gonna have a bit more of a sympathetic talk with Thor about being a better god, and something Baldur failed to be, but maybe Thor has a chance. And Thor kind of thinks about it for a little bit and then retreats into Valhalla. At which point, Kratos and Atreus realize that Odin has been absent from the fight pretty much the entire time. Where is he and what is he doing? The good guys are defeating the Aesir, and all the main characters push again through the halls of Valhalla, fighting the hordes of Draugr and the Einherjar and the remaining Aesir until they reach the Hall of Odin, where they find him sitting down, defeated, not doing anything, because he realized that he can't control his fate anymore. He couldn't change the outcome of Ragnarok, and it seems that his end is gonna come. And obviously most people in the room want to kill him. Atreus wants to kill him, Freya wants to kill him, Mimir wants to kill him. They all have a vendetta against him. And in the corner of the room we see Thor beaten down, trying to protect his wife, and his daughter. Odin commands Thor to attack the main characters, and Thor refuses and attacks Odin instead, but Odin anticipates this in a way and kills Thor in front of everyone. At which point we get our final boss battle against Odin, and he keeps taunting Kratos and Atreus about Kratos' fate and that he is destined to die in Loki's hands. Freya will try to protect Kratos at some point and will die at the hands of Odin, and will have a little value your time with your son sort of speech because she didn't have that with Balder. And then they fight some more, and at some point Odin beats Kratos and he stabs him mortally. At which point life starts draining away from Kratos and he slips into a purgatory of sorts into his mind, where he hears a familiar melody and he sees Faye. Faye tells him that he finally fulfilled his purpose as a father and as a general, and he is finally ready to join her in afterlife. This is obviously very appealing to Kratos. He wanted to be with Faye twice in the light, but after thinking about it for a little, he realizes that he actually has to live for something now. He tried to kill himself several times for hundreds of years, but only now does he realize that he has a purpose in this world. He can use his curse as a god and as a general to help others, not only in Ragnarok, but later on throughout time as a god. But he also has a purpose in his son, Atreus, who he would not leave behind. And as painful as it is for him, Kratos decides that it is not his fate to die, and magically, like God of War 3, he comes back to life. And he finds out that he is at the hands of Loki, who's mourning him, therefore in a way fulfilling the prophecy that Faye laid out in Jotunheim. Odin's like, oh shit, and Kratos is like, death can have me when it earns me, and everyone in the audience claps and cheers, and Odin is like, that is a crazy trick you pulled there. Anyway, I guess there's knowledge in defeat, and then he disappears. He probably escapes to a different pantheon. He could have gone anywhere and maybe a new game later on, and it's not done. At which point, Surtur destroys the remains of Valhalla and we fade to white. The plot of the main game is over, and there's some tying up to do, and the post-game, which will probably be trying to restore the balance of the 9 realms after they have been reborn in a way. Tyr becomes the new leader of the Aesir, and Loki and Angrboda set out to restart the Jotnar race just like Faye wanted them to. Mimir will go, oh, actually, I don't like having a body. Can you put me back on your hip, please? And that's gonna be that. And also Brock dies. So yeah. And what's left for Kratos? Well, the threat of Odin is not done, and I'm sure he's gonna re-emerge in whatever mythology they decide to do in the next game. And maybe also Athena and higher existence. And why did I do this? The game's coming out in literally 3 weeks or something, and it's gonna be all wrong. So did I just waste my time and your time? I guess. Anyway, bye.